as his mentor, it's always going to be a little argumentative here, but let's bring in the voice of college football at Fox Sports. So let's get some common ground here.
I love it.
Will we admit, I'm going to throw this out to you. 3 of the 4 teams they got right, and the 4th team's just going to get blasted by Alabama, so I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't think that you're wrong. And you know, I've said a few different times that I didn't think that there was a great choice for 4. You know, all these teams that are pretty flawed were arguing for this 4th spot as if they deserved it, you know, and, you know, I just – Notre Dame's going to go, and I think that they've got a better singular win than Texas A&M.
Yeah.
You can argue over like, well, you know, they both lost bad to Clemson or to Alabama. Yeah, but Notre Dame at least beat Clemson. I don't care who was on the field. I saw that game with my eyes. It has to matter to some degree. So I think that they got the 4 teams right with what they were trying to do, which is this whole notion of, well, like, we're just going to get the 4 best teams. I do think, though, Colin, that this year, maybe more so than others, and I think you agree with me on this too, like it's more apparent the sham that the college football playoff is. Like it really is just a beauty pageant, and it's so subjective that we knew back in late September who the 4 teams were going to be. As soon as the Big Ten announced, hey, we're going to come back and we're going to play and we're going to try to play a season, you and I could have just been like, okay, well, let's just have the playoff now. What are we going to seed them? Well, probably Alabama 1, probably Clemson 2, or vice versa. Then we're going to probably have Ohio State because they play less games, and then Notre Dame looks good. I mean, we knew what this was going to be. There was no access for anybody else. There was no avenue for this playoff for a team like Cincinnati or Coastal or any other team for that matter.
Yeah, the difference is that doesn't bother me. You lay awake at night struggling to sleep with that. I have no problem at all because I always watched beauty pageants as a kid, and I'm okay with it. And Joy Taylor was in beauty pageants, so I'm pro beauty pageant. Okay,
and very successful at it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk games. Clemson, Ohio State. I'm going to throw this out to you. So Clemson beat them last year. Dabo's poking them in the ribs.
Yeah.
Ohio State's back end worries me.
Yeah.
But Clemson could be looking ahead to Bama. I think this is a pretty close matchup, and Clemson, Ohio State, I think it's close. Your thoughts?
I picked Ohio State outright last year, but I thought it would be a good game, and that was an incredible game. I don't think Ohio State is nearly as good as they were a year ago, and I think Clemson might be as good or better than they were a year ago. So I'm leaning towards Clemson in this one. One thing has been very apparent for me covering Ohio State this year, and it's that defense is not nearly what it was a year ago, in particular in the back end, in the secondary. And facing a team that have the weapons that Clemson has, and more specifically, the quarterback that they have. Remember, the reason they beat Ohio State was because Trevor Lawrence decided to put a cape on his back and put an S on his chest and just flat beat him. And this structure of defense that Ohio State plays lends itself to a quarterback potentially getting loose. They're not great in coverage on the outside. They give up way too many big plays. And for those reasons, I think I'm leaning towards Clemson right now. But I will tell you, I think that Ohio State has the ability to line up and physically maybe pound the ball at Clemson. Remember, Notre Dame, even though those front 7 players for Clemson weren't in the ballgame, Notre Dame hammered them in the first meeting with their run game, Colin. And I think as the year has gone on, we have started to see that Ohio State can do that running the football. I mean, Trey Sermon ran for 331 yards last week against Northwestern, who came into that ball game as the 4th-ranked rushing defense in America. So I'm really interested to see how much ball control Ohio State can use to protect their own defense and keep Trevor Lawrence potentially off the field.
Can Notre Dame hang with Alabama? Do they do anything well or disruptive in the other semifinal game?
Well, I think that, listen, I like Notre Dame. You and I have been on the Notre Dame train all year.
Yeah.
I think that's been the common ground for us. This is a good football team. Alabama is in a different realm, I believe, than this Notre Dame team. And the one area that I think you need to be strong in order to compete with or potentially beat Alabama is that you've got to have an excellent quarterback and passing game. We've seen that with Ole Miss and their structure of offense with Lane Kiffin as their coordinator. We saw that in the SEC championship game with Florida and Kyle Trask putting up a lot of yards. I'm still hesitant to say, hey, Ian Book and Notre Dame can do that. right? Like they can just drop back and throw the football and gain that amount of yards against Alabama. I think that Alabama is too good for Notre Dame. Now, I think that Alabama could potentially have problems, even though I'll probably pick them in the championship game. They could potentially have problems when they have to face either Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. But I don't think Ian Book provides that type of concern that those elite players would in a championship game.
All right, let's talk Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Jets would obviously take Trevor Lawrence one. He's a rock star. He's an Andrew Luck, John Elway level player. Justin Fields had to transfer out of college. He's good. He's capable. I've seen him a couple times this year really struggle.
Yeah.
What would concern you about Justin Fields? I know he's an athlete. I know he's got a nice arm. We all know Lawrence. I'm done talking about him. Justin Fields. What concerns you about him going to New York, going to the NFL?
Well, the one concern I have is that he tends to hold the football an inordinate amount of time. And that's partly due to the fact that he is so gifted as an athlete, so that he feels like he can make a play regardless of what's going on around him. He can get stuck because of that, because of his ability to make plays in those situations. He can get stuck on the first read and the progression at times. This is very, like NFL draft scouty. I don't think that this has a lot to do with the playoff. But Fields at times has pressed and wanted to create big plays this year, and that's hurt them. It hurt them against Indiana with the pressure that the Hoosiers were able to put on him. It hurt him against Northwestern. He banged up his thumb a little bit in that game against Northwestern and could not throw the ball efficiently. Part of the reason is because everything was sailing on him high. Didn't have Chris Olave out there. So I think that there are certainly some concerns. And as we get into the draft process, I think that this year, unfortunately for Fields in the back half of the year, has been some games that are going to hurt his evaluation moving forward. And I think that there could be guys that start to creep up and get considered for that number 2 overall quarterback spot. A guy like Trask, a guy like Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. We'll see what the evaluation is like about Zach Wilson at BYU, maybe even Mac Jones, by the way, at Alabama. He's going to get first-round consideration. And because of the struggles that Fields has had in the back half of the season, I think it will be called into question whether he's even going to be the number 2 quarterback taken in the draft.
Joel Klatt. Okay, so finally, there's a difference between wanting something and knowing it's going to happen. I think both you and I think the college football playoff will expand. I think we both kind of feel that for some COVID, some budget issues, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I have never been a believer. The argument I've always used on expansion is college basketball now lets everybody in except my alma mater, and we still argue for days about the team that didn't get in. So if you have a country club, it doesn't matter. The one guy that didn't get in complains louder than the people that did get in. So I don't think it solves anything, a college football playoff, except budget stuff. Are you a fan of the college football playoff expansion?
I am, and this is a brand new phenomenon. I have come on your show and argued that it needed to stay at 4 teams. I wasn't a huge fan of them creating a playoff in the first place. One of the things that college football used to have is this incredibly important regular season, and it had incentive structures and the ability to define yourself as a program with success that was outside of the national championship. See, as opposed to for college basketball, maybe some teams can say, hey, we've been to the tournament, so on and so forth. And I guess like different rungs within the tournament, you can kind of say this is the level of success we're having. But in college football, we have stripped the ability of any program to define themselves or define success for themselves outside of the college football playoffs. So, Colin, what's happened is that college football and everything about it and everything that's important about it has been shoved up to the top. And I don't think that that's good for the health of the sport long term. There's only 6 programs that have won a college football playoff game. And those 6 programs finished as the top 6 finishers in the 2021 recruiting rankings after last week's initial signing day. That's Alabama, that's Clemson, that's Ohio State, Oregon is in there, LSU, and Georgia. And then the team that's right behind them in the recruiting rankings is Oklahoma. They've been to the playoff 3 times. So what we're going to get is this perpetuating cycle that the same teams are going to be right back in this elite playoff year after year, and nothing else matters. We're going to have players opt out, teams opt out. We need to expand the importance of college football for more teams. So for me, it's about more access. And by the way, I'm not arguing that the sixth best team is going to win the national championship or deserves a shot at the national championship. All I'm saying is that for the health of the sport, for teams outside of this very select few, we need to expand the opportunity, at least, to define success for those teams. And for that reason, to me, it's not a fix of go to 6 or go to 8, because it's not about arguing for those teams. It's about expanding the incentive structure for the sport. So, Colin, I actually think we need to go to 14 or 16.
Oh, boy.
I think bowl games should probably go away. And now we can at least have some semblance that we can define success for a greater number of teams.
Yeah, I will say this. Some of these bowl games are a bunch of nonsense. The more and more, outside of about 4 bowl games, there's nobody at the bowl game. So the consumer's not interested whatsoever. All right, Klatt, that wasn't bad. I always appreciate you put a few minutes of prep in before you come on our show. I could hear it today, the excellent prep by you. You're terrific at what you do. You have a beautiful family. And happy holidays, my friend. We agreed on a lot today. Happy holidays.
We really did. I'm thankful, by the way, that you allow me to come on your show, talk college football. I love college football. I love coming on your show. Joy, I love bantering with both of you guys. And I got to tell you, there's not many hosts in America that would allow someone to come on, call him a weirdo, and do all those things. So thank you. You're the best, man. You really are, and I appreciate you. Happy holidays to everybody out there.
Right back at you, buddy, and I am sort of a weirdo, so I can own that completely. Joel Klatt, who's as good as anybody that's ever done what he does. He's just terrific. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.